good, everybody? You are locked into Kingdom Keys with yours truly, the real AG, here on the Lockdown Defense Sports Network. This is where we break down everything red and gold from Arrowhead to the AFC throne. And we are entering an exciting Week 11 with an exciting AFC matchup in what is quickly becoming crunch time for the 5-4 Kansas City Chiefs. So getting right into it, as everyone should know in the kingdom, the Chiefs had a bye week in week 10, so we are looking at our bye week banter, just the biggest news coming out of the bye week. As I said, it's a little bit of crunch time for the 5-4 Chiefs. Just looking at the state of the AFC Union, they're currently 1-1 in their division. They're the eighth seed in the AFC playoff picture right now. They got some favors through the bye week with Houston beating Jacksonville, although Jacksonville still holds the tiebreaker over KC thanks to that Monday Night Football rough loss. Miami obviously beat Buffalo. That was nice. But unfortunately, the two other AFC West foes, if you will, in the Chargers and the Broncos both won. Denver now has a 2-lead game in the division. Indy and New England also won, and they're went to 8-2 record wise. But there's still nearly 2 months of games left. And like I've said in the past several times, you can never count out a team that's built on beating the odds, not until the odds finally beat them. So this is the prime time for the Chiefs to get hot, start rolling, start making noise in the AFC, and we'll look for them to do that out of the bye. Just looking at kind of like their remaining schedule, I've said it already in the past on some shows. It is crunch time. KC has kind of some odds to overcome, like the roads. It's not going to get any tougher for them at this point. They have an upcoming game this week, Week 11 AFC West matchup against the Broncos we'll get into. But then they have Indy, Dallas away, Houston, Chargers at home, Tennessee away, Denver at home, and close things out with the Raiders. So really not a lot of wiggle room in games that they can lose and, be a lock for the playoff picture. So they got a lot of things to get going with the state of the AFC Union coming out of their bye, but as I'll get into a little later, a lot to feel good about with KC and what they can do to start getting back on the right track. In other bye week news, it was a relatively quiet trade deadline for Kansas City. There was no moves made by the Chiefs or Brett Veach. Reportedly very close to a deal for Breece Hall. KC had reportedly offered a 2026 fourth-round pick. The Jets were adamant and staying pat on getting a third-round pick, which ultimately broke the deal. Breece Hall remains a Jet. Chiefs fans are maybe some fantasy fans out there too are kind of wallowing in self-pity about what could have been with that pairing. They also were reportedly very close to making a deal with Seattle for the edge rushing linebacker Boye Mafe. There was really no news on what was offered, but there have been reports that apparently the deal was very close to being done. Some reports even seem to indicate the deal was done and Seattle kind of backed out at the last minute. So either way, somewhat uneventful, relatively quiet trade deadline for the Chiefs. What those potential moves do tell me is that they identified a need at boosting the running back position as well as just edge rusher or just creating pressure on defense. Perhaps potentially the trade for Breece Hall tells me that they're not very confident in the status of Isaiah Pacheco and his injury right now, and felt that they would need some better pieces to move forward, but it is what it is, and that's just not what happened in this trade deadline. And other maybe exciting news, or at least good news for Patrick Mahomes as well as the Chiefs offense. Rookie left tackle Josh Simmons has returned to the team, came back during the bye week. He was out for a few weeks with a personal injury. Thoughts are out to him, and at least it sounds like things are resolved somewhat with that, or at least on the right track, and he's back to focusing on football. But quick little side note, on stuff I saw out on Twitter, family always comes first, and I respect Josh Simmons for quite literally living by that rule and making sure his home was right before anything else. So you got to respect that, respect the young man for his values, and glad he's back with the Chiefs. Week 11 status for him is still somewhat unknown. But ultimately, just nice to know that the young and exciting bookend tackle is back in the offense. So, kind of working into our Week 11 review, quickly going over the injury report. I mean, at the time I'm recording this, it's Tuesday night, so there's not a whole lot of updated info in terms of status, for the game Sunday. But the main injuries that we know right now. Obviously, Isaiah Pacheco, MCL sprain, was considered week to week, and I think originally reported to be back after this after their bye, and now Reed has said we'll have to see. So the status of that is really unknown at this point, and it looks like we're going to have to be relying, or the Chiefs are going to have to be relying on Kareem Hunt, Brashard Smith, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire to carry the load if he's still out. We had Jawan Taylor. He suffered an ankle injury Week 9 game against the Bills, did not return, but reportedly is on the right track, has a great chance to play in Week 11. As I noted, Josh Simmons, no personal injury or no physical injuries, was out for personal reasons, but just given the timing of when he came back, his status is unknown for Week 11. But I would like to think that he does play, especially if Jawan Taylor becomes more questionable or is just because he's banged up. But that's sort of the injury status right now for the Chiefs. So now we'll get into what we're all here for, and that is what's ahead. The upcoming matchup, Week 11, Chiefs versus Broncos. The Chiefs will be stampeding toward Mile High again, and y'all know what that means. It's time for Kansas City to remind Denver that although the Broncos may run wild, Mahomes runs the whole AFC, and that's where the Chiefs need to make a statement in this game. They need to leave with the victory. The odd makers think that they're going to win, or they're favored at least by 3.5 points. And, as I kind of noted, we got a lot of exciting things going in their favor. Offense has been buzzing at times lately. Defense has been pretty good for the most part, and they're coming out of their bye. And what Andy Reid is notoriously great out of. I mean, he is 22-4 in his career. But with all that being said, this is a must-win game for Kansas City on the road against a divisional opponent. Just quickly kind of reviewing the status of the Broncos injuries and where things are at. Linebacker Alex Singleton, pretty big force for them in the middle of that defense. He is doubtful in the game with a groin injury. J.K. Dobbins is listed as questionable. I've noted this on some of my fantasy content, but he did kind of sneakily sustain a left foot injury in that Thursday night football game, and now is reportedly a potential IR candidate with the injury. So definitely want to monitor the status of that, because that could change a lot of things for how the Chiefs defense schematically approaches the Broncos offense, and could hamstring the Broncos a little bit in this matchup. And on the defensive side of the ball, all-world corner Pat Surtain II is questionable with a pectoral injury. He was out, I think, the last 2 weeks. So that will obviously play huge implications if he's present or not. And then Marvin Mims Jr., kind of the all-package player wide receiver for them, is questionable with a concussion. So again, those are all pretty big key players, some more than others, but the first three I mentioned definitely will have huge implications on this game, depending on their status and overall availability. So, but ultimately getting into the matchup itself, looking ahead at my Week 11 Kingdom Keys and what the Chiefs must do to win this game. I will just preface, it's an AFC West divisional game. Everyone knows at this point, it doesn't matter how good the Chiefs have been in this dynastic run, these games are always close. They could be playing the winless Raiders and still win by a field goal, because that is just how tough these divisional matchups are, with the familiarity, just the history and everything in between. So I do think this is going to be an as advertised AFC West matchup. Broncos have some things in their favor. Chiefs has some things in their favor. We'll see how that all collides late Sunday afternoon, 3:25 Central Standard Time. But going through my keys, first and foremost, Kansas City must protect Mahomes. They got to ensure that he has time to operate. Denver, they are known for their defense, stout defense. lead the league in sacks right now. So this is a huge offensive line game. You know they're going to bring pressure. Casey has to emphasize limiting sacks and just the overall harassment of Mahomes. That is absolutely crucial to their success. And then continuing on the offensive side of the ball, they got to be sustainable on offense. They got to have sustained drives. They need to move the chains. They got to convert third downs consistently, keep this Denver defense on the field, really win the third downs in the long run. And they have to leave a lot of the drives with points on the board. And I know that's a very John Madden thing to say. You got to score more points than your opponent. I get it. But ultimately, looking at it like, Denver has a good defense. That defense has won them games, and they're in these very close games, a lot of them. But Chiefs have to come away with points, whether that's a field goal or not, but they got to keep the pressure on the Broncos offense to stay with them. Otherwise, it's not going to be a good game. I can tell you that. Third goal here, they need to control the line of scrimmage and the run game. Like I said, Broncos defense is stout. Chiefs cannot be one-dimensional as they have been at times throughout this season. They need to because if they become one-dimensional, that's just going to let Denver to play the games they want to play on defense and force predictable patterns, and that's just not going to have a good time if that's the case. So Kansas City is going to need to mix in the run game effectively with the likes of Kareem Hunt, Brashard Smith, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. They got to keep the Broncos honest with the run game and help that open things up in the passing game. I mean, I think that is beating on the broken drum at this point, because that's been the thing a lot of people have said about the Chiefs. They're just not consistently buying into the run game or sticking with it and just sort of getting cute and using RPOs as what would be your traditional run. And they cannot do that in this type of game against this type of defense. They're going to have to control the line of scrimmage and run game and keep them honest. And in turn, Kansas City needs to get after Denver's running game. I noted the potential injury to Dobbins. That'll play an impact, no doubt. But they need to make Denver as one-dimensional as they can. They got to force this to be a Bo Nix game. They got to force Bo Nix to have to make plays. That in turn is going to create more turnover opportunities and likely turnovers, just given the resume of Bo Nix's work here in 2025. That leads me into my next key. They need to constantly pressure Bo Nix defensively. Like I said, he has shown to be inconsistent and sometimes lazy, careless with the football, especially when he's pressured. He's really only shined this year against lackluster, poor defenses, or had a poor performance kind of overlooked based on them getting a win because of something the defense did. So the defense has to make this a Bo Nix beat them type of game. They got to force him to make the plays, be the guy, and that, like I said, in turn will just lead to more turnover opportunities and likely turnovers. And then kind of the last two keys here are sort of a 1-2 punch. They need to win the turnover battle. I mean, that may be another John Madden-esque key to the game, but they need to win the turnover battle and they need to win the critical moments. I've kind of prefaced, Denver's 6-2 right now in one-score games. Some of them could have gone either way. It's sort of the narrative that was around this Chiefs team last year. And part of that formula for them being successful in those 6-2 is, forcing turnovers and winning the takeaway margin. So Kansas City can't play into that. They got to avoid the self-inflicted mistakes offensively. They must force Denver to make mistakes. And, in these tight games, the team that executes in the fourth quarter and on those money downs wins. So, that is the recipe. In short, ladies and gentlemen, they got to keep Mahomes clean, keep the dream alive. You give 15 time, he will give you magic. But if he's running for his life, the whole kingdom is holding its breath. The offensive line, like I said, has one job in this game: build a wall and let the magic man cook. Number two, they got to mix the sauce, run it, gun it, own it. Like Denver's D is going to key in on Mahomes. They're going to key in on Rashee Rice in this passing game. So it's time to stir the pot a bit. A little bit of hunting with Kareem, a dash of play action, and then boom, you've got Andy Reid's recipe cooking hotter than Q39 barbecue. That needs to happen. And then the turnovers will tell the tale. It's simple. Take the ball. Don't give it back. Every turnover is a ticket to the W. If Spags' defense can keep the hate cranked up, Knicks is going to be riding straight into a Chiefs storm. So, there it is, Chiefs Kingdom. Protect Mahomes, mix the playbook, win the turnover war. Do that, and I think Kansas City is leaving Mile High feeling real high, if you will. But this has been your Kingdom Keys with the Real AG, ladies and gentlemen. As always, if you like my content, please get at me. There's my social info. There's the rest of the Hip Squad. We got Commanders Insider, Chargers Insider. If you want to look for more lockdown defense content, there it is. Anywhere and everywhere your smartphone will take you. But let me leave you with this, Chiefs Kingdom. Please be sure to hit that like button for this video. Drop your thoughts in the comments on this game or just what needs to be done for the Chiefs to get back into the playoffs and continue this run. And as always, please subscribe to the channel so you never miss a key to victory. But I will leave you with this. I'm the Real AG, locking up another week in the red and gold. So KC, Chiefs Kingdom, stay loud, stay proud, and as always, go Chiefs, baby.